You know, have you ever baked a cake and the recipe says 15 minutes prep, 30 minutes to bake, but somehow your kitchen looks like a disaster zone 2 hours later? Or what about that flat pack furniture? It should have been a 45-minute job, but nope, it just ate your entire Saturday. There's always this gap, right? Between the time you spend actively working and the total time it takes from start to finish. Well, today we're going to dive deep into that gap and figure out exactly what's filling it.
So this is the big question, isn't it? It's the puzzle we're here to solve. We're going to break down the entire timeline of a project. And I don't just mean the busy parts, I mean all those hidden moments in between. Seriously, by the end of this, you'll see why the waiting is just as important as the working.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the big picture, this total time puzzle. Then we'll slice it up, looking at the work times and then those invisible wait times. After that, we'll talk about a super important safety buffer. And finally, we'll put all the pieces back together to see the complete picture of how long it really takes to get something done.
Okay, let's get started and unpack this puzzle. In the world of manufacturing, there's a name for this total time from the very first step to the absolute last. It's called production lead time. Now, the key thing to get here is that production lead time is not just adding up the work minutes. No, it captures everything: the work, the waiting, the moving things around, all of it. It's the real, actual calendar time that a product spends inside the system, from the moment it starts until it's completely finished.
So let's begin with the parts that make the most sense to us. The times when people or machines are actually doing something to the product. These are what we call the work times. And get this, they're the only parts of this whole process that actually add cost to what you're making.
This whole block of work is called execution time, and it's made of two very different activities: setup time and run time. The best way to think about it is like you're cooking. Setup time, that's you getting out all your ingredients, finding the right bowl, preheating the oven. Run time is the actual chopping, mixing, and baking. Both are absolutely necessary, and both cost you something, whether it's your time or the electricity bill.
So here we go. These are the first two building blocks of our timeline. We've got a fixed chunk of time for setup and then a bigger variable chunk for runtime. Seems simple enough, right? Well, hold on, because this is where our story starts to get a whole lot more interesting.
Setup time is that all-important prep phase. It's the time it takes to get a machine dialed in for a specific task. And here's the crucial part. It takes the exact same amount of time to set up that machine, whether you're about to make one single item or 1,000 of them. It's a one-time cost for each batch.
Runtime, on the other hand, is completely different. It's tied directly to how many things you're making. If it takes 1 minute to build one widget, it's going to take 100 minutes to build 100 widgets. This part scales up with the size of your order, which, makes perfect sense.
Okay, so we've got our work times nailed down, but what about all that other time, that gap we talked about? Well, this is what we call interoperation time. You can just think of them as the wait times. And this, right here, is where most of the time in any project is secretly hiding. These are the secret schedule stretchers, and they don't add a single penny of cost to the final product.
This quote from Olaf Simran, who's the source for this breakdown, really hits the nail on the head. These next 3 chunks of time we're going to talk about, they are purely for scheduling. They blow up the timeline, but they don't change the value or the cost of the thing you're making one bit. And understanding this, it's a total game changer for managing pretty much anything.
Whoa, now look at this. We've just added the 3 wait times to our chart. Do you see how they completely dwarf the actual work times? This is the shocking reality of most processes. The vast majority of the time, a product is just sitting there, waiting for the next step. It's not being worked on, it's just in limbo.
So let's follow a part on its little journey of waiting. Imagine it just finished one step. Let's say it was just stamped out of a sheet of metal. First, it gets to the next station and has to get in the queue. Then, after it gets worked on there, it might need to wait, maybe for some paint to dry. And finally, it has to be moved over to the next station in the line.
So, queue time is basically just time spent waiting in line. The machine you need is still busy with the job before yours, so your parts just sit there, waiting their turn. This time is actually built into the schedule to soak up any small delays, and this is critical. It happens on the clock during the factory's normal operating hours.
Now let's look at wait time and move time, because they're different. Wait time is a necessary pause. Think of glue setting or paint drying. The cool thing is, this can happen anytime, 24/7, even overnight, because it's not tied to when the factory is officially open. Move time, however,
That's the time it takes for a forklift or a person to physically carry the materials to the next spot. And that can only happen when the work center is open and people are actually there.
So we've covered the work, and we've covered all the different kinds of waiting. But any smart planner knows you have to account for one more thing, the unexpected. Life happens. And that brings us to our final component, the safety buffer.
Safety lead time is pure intentional slack. It's a cushion, a buffer that you build right in at the very end of the schedule. So the last part is technically finished, but you don't promise delivery for that exact moment. You add a buffer, just in case something, somewhere along that long chain of events, went a little bit wrong.
And its purpose is really simple. It's insurance against chaos. It's the reason you can still hit your big deadline even if a supplier is late or a machine has a bad day. This little buffer is what separates a reliable schedule from one that's just wishful thinking.
Okay, deep breath. We've broken it all down. Now let's assemble all 6 pieces of our puzzle and look at the complete picture, the full anatomy of production time.
And here it is, our ultimate cheat sheet. You can see it all laid out. We've got our interoperation times, queue, wait, and move, which are all about scheduling and don't cost a thing. Then we've got our execution times, setup and run, which are the only parts that actually add cost. And finally, our safety buffer, which is all about making sure we hit that due date. The amazing thing is that only 2 of these 6 time components have anything to do with adding value or doing work.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? It's that if you really want to speed up a project, just focusing on making the work parts faster is almost always the wrong way to go. The real opportunity, the place where most of that time is hiding in plain sight, is in managing and shrinking all that time in between. That is the real secret to efficiency.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Now that you can see this hidden anatomy of time, think about your own job or your personal projects. Where is the queue time? Where is the move time? The wait time? Where are you just waiting for an email or for feedback from your boss or for another team to finish their part of the puzzle? Because once you start seeing time this way, you can never, ever unsee it.